Let's go back to 1996. You and your friends had just watched Independence Day at the local cinema. You're driving back home in your Volkswagen Golf, singing along to the Spice Girls, excited that later you'll get to play that new Super Mario 64 game. Life was good, but how about instead of being social, or seeing people, or adventuring around the real world, you could instead be absorbed in the virtual? Because 1996 gave us the first graphical 3D MMO. Meridian 59. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm Josh Hayes. I've spent years playing many MMO games, from the best to the worst and everything in between, but today I'm going to go back to basics. I'm going to go and play the very first MMO with a fully explorable 3D graphical world. Now, the MMO genre began many years before with text-based multi-user dungeons or MUDs, such as Legends of Future Past or the Island of Kesmai. But Meridian 59 was the first MMO to add a graphical interface and allow the player to explore a 3D environment from a first-person perspective. Before we dive into this pioneer of online 3D gaming, a massive thank you to my supporters on Patreon and my subs on Twitch who support the channel and allow me to remain independent and do what I do. More on how you can support at the end. For now, let's begin. Meridian 59. It's still online today, and the main website is gloriously 90s with pixelated fonts of all sizes, a tiled background, and a clickable door icon at the top with no indication that it's clickable. This truly is a holdover from a time when the internet was wild and untamed. Even opening a screenshot actually opens a new page instead of just having it pop up. This is how things used to be. Thankfully, I won't need to go through the old style installation process because Meridian 59 is now on Steam. You'll still need to make an account on the main page though. The reviews on Steam are extremely positive, and because the game is only 300 megabytes, it downloads in about 45 seconds. Now this is an old game. Specifically, it's an old MMO, and this means very little if any central plot and very little guidance. It's essentially going to be a virtual world to explore. This means it's going to have a lot of very deep systems it probably won't bother to explain. So I'm reading through this beginner's guide written by Steam user Cosmic Wayfarer. It's all seeming pretty self-explanatory so far though, so let's get going. First things first, the game is not full screen. There are clients that can make it full screen, but not the official one. You can either play in this tiny box or make it half screen. And because it's an older style program, you've still got the file and help options to the top left. Well, let's log in. First off, we're greeted with the message of the day, which I think we can all agree is both inspiring and relatable. Okay, I need to sort this screen recording out. I can't stretch the video because the aspect would be off, but I can add the world map to the right-hand side. It won't help us at all because it's overly stylized, but that's the best we're going to get. There are two active servers, 101 and 102. The website describes 101 as active but PvP focused and 102 as quiet but more chilled. So I'll take 102 because I don't fancy being killed. Add a character name and write my own description. Remember, role-playing and players actually communicating and relating to each other was huge in the early MMO landscape, so I'll just go with like and subscribe. Now to make my character, and why does the default male look like Worf from Star Trek? First issue, there are no numbers or names for the character creation choices. You can cycle through hairstyles, but it doesn't say hair 1, hair 2, hair 3, or eyes 1, eyes 2. You just cycle through until you realise they are repeating, and then find the one you liked the most. With appearance made, it's time to assign stats, and remember, this was made in 1996, meaning if you build your character wrong, you will pretty much need to restart the game. No rerolls here. Thankfully, they do have some suggested levels, so I'll take the warrior and hope for the best. Now I need to choose some spells and some skills, and I have a certain number of skill points to spend on both spells and skills. They use the same pool of points, and if I don't spend all the points, I will effectively lose them. Now you cannot take both good and evil magic spells, so if you're going to be a mage, decide on your alignment and stick to it. I will go with some dodging and some slashing, because I'm going to be a warrior, along with a mace skill, because I'll probably be using a mace a lot. And with that all set in, we begin our adventure in the classic old school way with a lot of reading. There's no voiceover in Meridian 59 and there's a lot to learn in a very short time, so long text-based tutorials will appear throughout. Movement is WASD with A and D strafing, which I like a lot, but movement is somewhat jerky. When you start moving in any direction, you will lurch that way quite substantially and then glide smoothly. Pressing C locks the camera to mouse look, which is extremely smooth if a little sensitive. With the cursor unlocked, right-clicking on basically anything brings up a description of that thing. Tables, chairs, flaming torches, people, items, enemies, pretty much everything has a right-click examine text option. This opening area is a tutorial, and you're surrounded by these signposts. You need to read each one to know where to find the next. There's no quest journal, no arrows, no markers on the minimap highlighting active quests, no real quests at all apart from things NPCs kind of want you to do. You need to read what everyone says, decide if you care enough to do it or not, and then go and find how to do it. There's no central plot or through line, just small side quests you can choose to do if you want to. To go through a door into a connected area, walk up to it and press spacebar. You'll see a lot of the genre staples were already being established even back in 1996. Minimap to the top right, chat to the bottom left, inventory to the right hand side with tabs to switch between what you're looking at. In a very basic way, this is not a million miles away from old school RuneScape. Hovering the cursor over the blue squares on the minimap brings up short descriptions of places. Navigation will become an issue later, but in small villages it's great. You can also add your own map flags, and you'll need to, because the few quests you will find are somewhat random, and finding your way back to anywhere takes either a fantastic sense of direction or a heavily marked map. Once in a larger, more open place, the movement is great. It controls a lot like the original Doom. Speed and accuracy. Open rooms are great, tight corridors are not great. Now a pretty major issue with the launcher. Interacting with both players and NPCs is done through typing. You need to say hello to people. You need to type buy to open a shop interface, and there is an area to type at the bottom of the text box. But when you maximize the game window like I have, it automatically cuts off the typing area under your computer's taskbar. If I restore the game window to default size, you'll see the typing area is there, but with it maxed out, it's counting my entire monitor size and filling that without taking into account the fact the taskbar will overlay it, and it overlays even when the game launcher window is focused. It's not game breaking, it's just an unfortunate bug. Open the blacksmith shop by typing buy and then grab myself some supplies, then follow the signposts off to the local tavern. Here I learn about hit points, mana and vigor. Your hit points and mana both recover slowly based on how much vigor you have. It's essentially endurance. You use vigor to fight and to run, and you recover it by resting. Resting inside an inn recovers it faster. I buy some food from the innkeeper and try to eat it, but then get told I'm too full. It's nice to know the game cares about my waistline. Now you might be looking at the hit points, mana and vigor bars and thinking they're not full, and that's correct. They're not as full as they could be, but they're as full as they're capable of getting. The bar shows you what you could potentially get to, and then the red line shows you what you're up to now. I will need to level up quite substantially to be able to fill my maximum health to reach the entire bar. The Elder then teaches us about talking. You can type say hello for local players and NPCs to see and then respond to the word hello, or you can use the broadcast command to speak to the entire server. But using broadcast uses up half your mana, meaning it's only really possible to server chat when you're resting in an inn. This seems like quite a nice way of keeping server-wide spam down. It also shows how low the player base is, the fact one of the first things you get taught to is how to communicate with the entire player base, and currently nobody is doing that. I type quest at the Elder as he tells me to, and he tells me to go and clear the local mausoleum of some monsters. See, even back in 1996 we started off with go and kill some zombies. So into the mausoleum we go, and another sign explaining combat. Equip a weapon by right-clicking it in your inventory and choosing use, then just hold E whenever you're close to an enemy. Weapons do have quality and durability levels, but they're not shown with numbers. You need to keep rereading the item's description text to get a general sense of its state. So let's fight. This mausoleum is full of mummies, so let's go bashing. Attacking with the sword takes a while, and like everything else, there's no numbers. The text box just says if you've hit or if you've been hit, and then you'll get told when the enemy looks barely injured, badly injured, or near death, but you've got no health bar or numbers or visual cues. You also don't have levels for enemies or yourself, but we'll look at that system more later. When enemies die, they'll drop loot. Right-click on the loot pile, choose an item and select get to pick it up, or just type get to pick up whatever's nearest to you. Your HP recovers while in and out of combat, and these early enemies don't do that much damage, so you can actually move from fight to fight relatively quickly. It's actually a really well-paced early game tutorial. Movement is fast, map interaction, NPC interaction, item equipping, and combat have all been covered really well in a very short amount of time. When you're in a town, your map will be full, but when you're in a dungeon or wilderness area, your map starts blank and is filled in automatically as you go, so discovery and exploration is heavily encouraged. But because the map is basically just a single black line with the same background, and there's no way to tell what's the movable area and what's the outside of the map area, it can get quite maze-like and confusing once you're in a more complex cluster of tight corridors, which the first dungeon just so happens to be. Let's switch to the mace, see how that deals with the mummies instead, and oh, that is way faster. Yeah, I'm using the mace from now on. So I kill some more mummies and hear a cool sound, and then a text box says I now feel stronger. Now this is how leveling up works. You don't actually have a level. Everything you can do is tracked separately. Want to get better at a mace skill? Use a mace. Want more health? Get hit. Want to block better? Block more stuff. And your progress is tracked in the skill window with the little percentage number next to each skill. I'm improving my slash skill by just fighting, but you don't have an overall level and neither do enemies. If you discover a new enemy, you won't know anything about it, and the only way to learn about it is to fight and see how type the enemy's name at a local innkeeper and see what they say. Meaning knowledge of the game is essential as you explore around. It's one of those games where the best way to play is to have already played the game. And you know, honestly, I'm really enjoying this tutorial. What people forget about old games is that while yes, they were hard and they were tough and they were somewhat unforgiving, they were trying to make the best game they could. The designers genuinely thought this would be the most fun experience. They put in what they honestly thought the players wanted, and the movement is fast, stamina recovers quickly, enemies do enough damage to matter but never feel overwhelming. The map filling itself in means my exploration does matter. My skills have leveled fast enough that I feel I'm making progress. It's got me into the gameplay really fast. The through line of this tutorial from character creation to now has a lovely flow to it. This game released the same year as The Elder Scrolls Daggerfall, so first-person fantasy adventures were widely known about, and where Daggerfall ignored multiplayer and focused entirely on single-player story-driven gameplay, Meridian 59 ignored central story and focused on providing a dangerous world for players to explore. You know, if the story and plot-driven elements of Daggerfall and the open-world exploration and freedom of Meridian 59 were brought together, I imagine you could have something pretty special, and I think every MMO forever has been trying to do that. I keep pushing through the mummies, occasionally discovering parts of the world not quite modelled correctly, letting me see the walkways and corridors above, and then I realise I move way faster than the mummies, so if I want I can just sprint past all of them. Now we learn about jumping, or more specifically how the game doesn't have jumping, but it does have falling, and all jumping puzzles are essentially controlled falling puzzles. It says just run off a ledge and aim. Well, okay then. And now we reach the very end of the mausoleum maze, and I am faced with this, a large wooden gate with two levers, one either side. Pulling one opens half the gate, but then it closes within seconds, same for the other. This is a two-person puzzle. You need to pull the levers at the same time, and no matter how much I prepare, no matter how fast I sprint, there is not enough time to do this by yourself. Now the annoying part is I can see there is one other player on the server because there's a drop down menu that tells you, but even broadcasting a message doesn't get a response. This is the tutorial area, and when you leave you can't return. So I don't have any way of getting in here, which is a shame because I can't imagine many people have ever actually seen what's behind this door. This is one of the worst parts of the you need a group gameplay. If a lone wanderer stumbles upon a game while adventuring solo, they're effectively cut off from much content. If there was a solo way to do this, even if it was killing more mummies or running around or finding a third lever, I would do it. But unfortunately, the you need a group mentality will always lead to this, content being cut off for a large amount of the player base. But with all the basics covered, I guess it's time to leave the tutorial and journey into the wide open world. Back at the start village, and before I leave, I'm told about mail. Type mail to read letters, and here's one from my guardian angel explaining all the basics again, and then it says if I log off while I'm inside an inn, I will be okay. But if I log out while I'm not inside an inn, I may suffer losses similar to death. Wow, okay, I am not cool with that. Old games were tough. Dying in Meridian 59 means all the usual old school stuff. Dropping items, if you're killed by a player you can lose experience, but the game mechanic of log off in an inn or risk dying while offline, that's brutal. Well, through the portal we go, and we arrive in Sabillo Creek. There's no one else around, so I head out into the village and check the map. Oh, there's an adventurers guild. Maybe I'll find people or NPCs there, so let's go explore. And nope, the place is empty actually, no NPCs. I guess the guild was designed for humans to be the adventurers. But there is a guest book, and oh, you can write in it. Wow, now that is old school. Remember when websites had visitor counters or guest books you could sign? The adventurer log in the Adventurers Guild has stories, personal anecdotes, or poems from past players. It's quaint. It's a relic. It's a holdover from when it was possible to trust a player base to be relatively agreeable. Can you imagine what a feature like this would look like in a modern MMO? A guest book everyone can write in inside the starting city. I dare to think what you'd be able to read in that. I pop into a shop called Solomon's Edibles and I have a chat with the owner. He asks me to bring him some special chicken soup from Widow Quesend. No indication of where she is, no quest journal, no log. She might not even be in this village. We'll never know until we actually find her, and I have to just remember to ask about chicken soup. So I have a quick look around and I don't spot anyone by that name, so I decide, right, time to adventure into the world. And when I do, you're about to hear the fact that the adventure music in Meridian 59 takes its job very seriously. The moment you are out of the village, it is just bam, face full of adventure. Just listen. The overworld map is divided into smaller areas. Sometimes the transition from area to area is obvious, like a door or a blatant scenery change, and sometimes it's hidden, like this river opening. The landscape itself is mostly flat, with some very blocky hills or cliff sides. I get into a fight with a centipede, and this is always a risky thing because remember, there's no indication of how tough an enemy is. Even right-clicking just gives you a description, no indication of power. To find out more, I could go and ask a local innkeeper, but I'm an adventurous sort, so we'll just smack everything and see how we do. Let's journey into this rocky cliffside-looking place. Now you do have a minimap, but if you type the word map, the 3D graphical display is replaced with a top-down map. It's essentially the same as the minimap, but a little bit bigger. And you know what, honestly, this is basically what the game is, a player moving around a place. There's no full world map view, but I did manage to find this flowchart map showing area connections in relation to each other. If you were planning on serious exploration, you'll probably need this. Remember, while there are side quests or mini quests, there's no real quest line or goal beyond explore, and as we've seen, sometimes you'll need another player's help. So it's best to look at Meridian 59 as a huge open fantasy world with challenges in. It's essentially the first 3D sandbox MMO, which is great when there are players. But as I've pointed out, if your game relies on players to be playable, once you remove the players, like we're seeing here, you're kind of left with a ghost town. Slap this slime around, he's tough, but my mace is tougher. Then marvel at these soldiers hanging out by a flag. Try to talk to them, but they're not interested. All the major towns seem to have groups of soldiers hanging around them, protecting areas. I assume if you're being attacked by an enemy or another player, you can run to these guys for help. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. I would test it, but there's no other players around. Into this spooky forest, and oh, the giant spider model's actually quite creepy. Quick tussle with Mr. Spider, and then more exploration, and oh, what's this? A creepy looking web-covered tree. And it's hollow. Wonder if I can go inside. Yes, you can. It's a spider web-filled dungeon, which basically means it's a series of corridors with spider web graphics on the walls, and my god, this is garish to navigate. The minimap is sort of helping, but the paths are so tightly wound with so many dead ends, and there aren't any shadows or real way to judge depth with the repeating web pattern, and you move so fast. I get that this was meant to represent a claustrophobic spider's nest inside a tree, and honestly, they nailed that exact ambience. It's awkward as hell to navigate. Oh, another tree, but not the one I entered from. I wonder where this takes me. It takes me to a spooky graveyard, and there's no way back. I can't return to the spiderweb dungeon, it seems, because there's no tree and no hole in the ground. Well, I guess I'm here now, okay? Seek out new horizons and all that. Spirit of the Trailblazers, time to explore brave new worlds, to seek out new life. Hello, new life, how are you today? And I'm dead. So death, in a rather metal touch, sends you to hell, and you don't actually suffer any dying consequences until you've leveled up quite a bit. Well, it's kind of close to hell. I'm in this lava-filled room surrounded by portals. The lava doesn't seem to hurt you though. There is a rip in the space-time continuum, and examining it tells me it's where I came from. But if I climb these steps, I can walk around to any of the other portals in the room. So death is essentially a realm where you can pick where you respawn from. That's cool, sort of like fast travel, but the cost is, well, dying. I wasn't having too much luck in my starting play. Another adventure, another empty area. Look, I know this was groundbreaking for the time, and I'm going to sing its praises later, but I can't help but feel just a little bit disappointed. There's nothing in this world inherently to drive you to stay. You would stay for the personal drama, the guilds, the scheming, the other people, and that's moved on now. I mean, look, in this guild hall, there's a message orb. I saw one in the last guild as well. Players can leave notes and developers can chat back and forth, and one of the latest messages, only a few days old, is asking if the server is dead. And people are saying, no, it gets up to 20 people sometimes, but I mean, I'd still call 20 people pretty sparse. This NPC mentions they are playing chess with a local princess and asks me to deliver her next move by message, so I will if I bump into her and I write that down on a piece of paper. Oh, fantastic, this shop sells shields, might help keep me alive a little bit longer. I just journey from map to map, smashing some rats or centipedes along the way, uncovering the minimap, running into many dead ends. Seriously, this map has so many dead ends, and oh look, I'm back at the starting city. I didn't mean to do that, it just happened. I go back further into this forest and a giant ant. No idea if it's going to be a cakewalk or if it's going to destroy me. Only one way to find out. If it was a lower level, and it is. Oh, fantastic. Well, through the forest and into the windy gorge we go. Meridian 59 without players is basically a big game of ooh, what's over there. You're spurred on by curiosity and intrigue, not really any sense of purpose. You're not going anywhere for any specific reason, you're just exploring for the sake of exploring, and at least they've made that easy to do. This game was made when exploring was enough to keep players around. Another local city. Oh, the minimap says this is an arena, so let's go and take a look. Pop in the front door, then around the steps and up a corridor, and oh damn, it's a giant gladiator-style arena, but there's no people to fight, and no NPCs to challenge. But goddamn, this music! I don't care there's no enemies, I am just gonna vibe here for a bit. Outside the arena there are trophies listing past winners, and for the age of the game I expected a long distinguished list, but no, there's just a few people listed here. Oh, the game has a bank as well, and the banker also acts as a shop, selling gemstones. To bank you need to manually type deposit, withdraw or balance. A bank in the first 3D MMORPG. We really have just been innovating on the foundations set for us, haven't we? There are so many dead ends in this game, it's maddening. Maybe there were players here once, launching ambushes, maybe treasure, maybe hiding from pursuing enemies, but now just dead ends. As it stands, this is mainly an exploration game with pretty decent music. Meridian 59 took the mud genre at the time and gave it 3D graphics. It took the fantasy worlds viewed from above and let you explore them from within. It was a pioneer of using the 3D graphical power of computers to actually let multiple players explore a consistent online shared fantasy world, to see the adventure through their characters' eyes, and it standardized a lot of things we now take for granted. Minimap placement in the top right, NPC interaction, combat and healing, banking, inventory management, even death. Meridian 59 took on so many systems and did them almost well enough that we haven't really needed to change too much from what they set. We've improved, but we've not completely changed. Eventually I find an enemy I just can't take on, this troll outside a wizard's hut. He's tough and he takes me down to low health, so I just run, I sprint away. There's no shame in running in this game. It's plan B in every situation. This time though, it's through an aging forest and into a hidden mine entrance. Ooh, this little secret secret tunnel tucked away in a corner. The mine is abandoned, and after exploring the tunnels for a while, I find this treasure room, a plinth and a golden chalice called the Chalice of the Rain. Obviously I try to loot it, but no, you can't. Shame. Would have made a nice trophy. As soon as I try though, orcs and spiders flood the mine behind me, and despite fighting my best, I am taken down and sent back to hell, so I take another portal back to another village. By now I'm getting a sense of what this world is currently. An open world with, for the time, great scope. I can only imagine how this felt, bustling with players, alive with energy, PvP, trades, guilds, forming and breaking up through trust and chat. Those guest books having pages and pages added to them every day, and as for the gameplay, it's actually stood up surprisingly well even to this day. People often say they want to make a game with the spirit of the old games, and what they mean is, I want to make a game as obtuse and as hard as possible, but they're wrong because remember, the old games tried to be as good as they could possibly be. They didn't try to make things obtusely difficult just to be hard. They didn't hide information on purpose. They had tutorials, they shared information with you, they told you what to do, they wanted you to play them. They did it because they thought this was the best they could possibly be, and this game is dripping with style and heart. It was made with the best intentions, and that still shows. I appreciated the tutorial, short enough to flow, long enough to cover the basics. I enjoyed the exploration and uncovering the map. I didn't even mind the combat as slow as it was. I find it oddly charming. The old school graphics add to this lovely ambience. I enjoyed my time in this game. Meridian 59 was an adventure game, back when adventure game just meant open world with stuff to discover, and it worked. It walked so others could run. It was a pioneer. It gave it a damn good shot. It never reached the heights of EverQuest or the infamy of Ultima, but it showed the world that the 3D MMO was a viable genre, and for that we should all be forever grateful. If I could make a few quality of life changes, I would. Click to talk on NPCs, have a world map, have it open with the M key, add in a solo quest line that you can follow so individual players can still feel the world has an adventure for them. Regular viewers will know that I'm a big advocate for both group content and solo content, having an MMO appeal to most types of players. This game was made to be an adventure. It's nice to know where we started and to see how far we've come. Meridian 59 set out to give people a sense of wonder, and it achieved that back in 1996. And if you've watched this video and been even slightly impressed, it's still achieving it today. Meridian 59 wanted to show the world the 3D MMO could become a global powerhouse, and it was absolutely, completely correct. Cheers for watching. Another massive thank you to my supporters on Patreon and Twitch who make the channel possible. You can support from only £1 a month. Check the video description for links to the Patreon, Twitch, Twitter, and our Discord. And as always, have a great day.